We're back again. You didn't think I was done, did you? Now we're talking about the new HIV strand that has been found in the Netherlands, and I have some even more alarming news for you on this. It's absolutely, this is crazy. Now, what is going on, y'all, is this variant, these strands are being found in a lot of European countries. Now, I'm going to read you something. I've already done that already, but I also want to bring you up on what's going on in Australia. And you know, it really makes you think that what is actually happening, because we already know that there are a lot of things that are done by design, and it's not by happenstance. Okay, but this is pretty amazing because of the levity of what's actually going on. Okay, and I just, in the last podcast, I read some stuff to you, and I'm gonna go back to some of it so I can actually complete it. And we're gonna be keeping you up to speed on what's going on with this. And so this is why I asked you guys to subscribe. Okay, this is why I asked you to support. If you don't think that this information is important to you, then of course you won't. But this information is important because prayerfully it won't come to your doorstep. This VB variant ability to facilitate transmissions, damage the immune system, and interrupts treatment is a reminder in how smart the virus is evolving over time, said Anthony J. Centilla. Okay, this guy is a professor at the administration, and policy at the University of New Haven, is where I grew up. So this is being tested and examined on many fronts at different universities, testing an important tool against HIV. When asked what the variant means regarding testing recommendations for those at risk, Williams, of course, stated, and the president of the global health think tank Access Health International said, it depends on people's behavior. Hello, somebody. It depends on people's behavior. And when people's behavior, as I spoke in the last podcast, is jeopardizing the way in which you live, then what do you need? What's the next step? You need to get away from people who are impeding your way of life, or those who are causing or would or potentially can cause you to be at a place of detriment. And so you want to rid yourself of any actions or those who are living crazy, but if that's what you choose, I have no control over that. It depends on the activity and how many different partners you have, he said, adding that people who have multiple partners should undergo HIV testing more often. If you live your life like that today, you crazy as hell. You just a straight out damn fool. If you sleeping around with multiple people, your priorities are all messed up. And I'm skipping along here. Okay, it says the FDA Associates Commissioner, President of the Center for Medicines in the Public Interest, said he doesn't think that VB is a cause for alarm. Yeah, right. I think it's a cause for renewed focus, he said. We've been able to move HIV/AIDS from a deadly disease to a chronic one. The battle against virus is a never-ending one, he continued. I think that from a public health perspective, we should focus on prophylactic care. Okay, so you know what? I'm going to skip this and I'm going to go to the other article. And we're going to go back to this variant that is in the Netherlands. But I want to read you this one that from Australia. This is in Australia now. It's in Australia as well. Okay, so it goes on to say, it says how HIV elimination is within Australia's reach. And you have a lot of gay people. You know, I'm not against gay people. I may not endorse how you live, but it doesn't mean that you can't be my friend. I have friends like that back home. But they don't cross the line with me because they know how I am. I'm heterosexual. So they don't impede on my way of living. Australians' HIV diagnosis have hit an all-time low, with the country in sight of eliminating transmissions. It's a legacy of Australia's early effective response, reports Gary Noon from Sydney. But that's not what I read earlier. Let's see. I want to give you something else. Okay. So now, this is one that I read to you earlier. So let's go here. Give me a minute. Doctors raised alarm about ancient HTLV-1 virus prevalent is off the charts in Australia. You hear what they said is off the charts in Australia. Now listen to this. An ancient virus, they call this shit ancient. Virus infecting residents across Australia's Northern Territory is leaving death and despair in its path, and doctors are now calling for greater efforts to stop the spread of infections. The rates of human T-cell leukemia virus type 1 or HTLV-1 infections are exceeding 40% among adults in remote regions of Central Australia, with Indigenous communities being the hardest hit, especially in the town of Alice Springs. Many doctors, including the man who discovered the virus nearly 4 decades ago, are raising the alarm about how little has been done to prevent, test for, and treat HTLV, one which can cause leukemia and lymphoma. The prevalence is off the charts in Australia, said Dr. Robert Gallo, co-founder and director of Institute of Human Virology at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, whose laboratory was the first to detect the HITLV-1 in 1979, published the findings in 1980. Yet nobody that knows of in the world has done anything about trying to treat this disease before, said Gallo, who is also co-founder and scientific director of the Global Virus Network and chairs the network's HTLV-1 task force. Okay, so my take on that is because it's affecting the indigenous population, and without trying to become how can I say this? Without trying to become really angry or you know, about how the indigenous people of Australia have been treated, which a lot of us know about, and how that there have been indigenous populations wiped out by Europeans. And I think I did a podcast not long ago talking about how they were treated. And it's my belief that they're still trying to get rid of the remainders of indigenous people who are in Australia, because there's still a small population of them who are left. They didn't kill them all, but it seems to me that's what they're actually trying to do. Because as you notice, this particular strand is mostly in the areas where the indigenous population happen to live, because for long periods of time, the government of Australia has done nothing to resolve the indigenous population's underclass, the woes of these people, thrust upon them by this government, and the outright dishumanizing treatment and the barbaric treatment of these people is unprecedented. It's just so inhumane, to say the least. And yet there's still a campaign, seems to me, to eradicate these people from the planet. See, because that's still their land. And like anywhere else, unfortunately, where the European goes, he just brings havoc. He just brings so much, inhumane treatment of other people, and just taking over people's land and just murdering and slaughtering people. And it's I don't, it's just a travesty. It's unfortunate for these people that they have to live in squalor, because there are people who have come and placed them. And there was this interview with this one European guy who was called on the carpet for falsifying all this stuff that he supposedly was doing to bring the indigenous people to a place where they have dignity, where they have, where they can be solvent, where they have a place where they can live in Australia, where they have land, where they can grow food, and it's the conditions there for them are just horrendous. They're terrible. They're actually terrible. So, if in fact this infectious disease that has hit many of them get into the main population, I will not be surprised. But at the same time, I think that it's by design that it's only in that area. See, because it's not in the main, as far as I know, the main population of Australia, but we'll continue just reading a little bit more and we'll move on. It says the prevalence is off the charts in Australia, said Dr. Robert Gallo, co-founder and director of the Institute of Human Virology at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, whose laboratory was the first to detect the HTLV-1 in 1979 and published the finding in 1980. Yet nobody that I know of in the world has done anything, and I'm reading this again, about trying to treat the disease before, said Gallo, who is also co-founder and scientific director of the Global Virus Network and chairs the network's HTLV-1 task force. There's little to almost no vaccine efforts outside of some Japanese research, he said. So prevention by vaccine is wide open for research. HTLV-1, an ancient virus whose DNA can be found in a 1500-year-old Adian mummies, can spread from mother to child, particularly through the breastfeeding between sexual partners, through unprotected sex, and by blood contact, such as through transfusions, because it can be transmitted through sex. It's considered a sexually transmitted infection, or STI, or L, whatever that is. Okay, so now they're saying that this is the ancient disease. They said it was transferred through a mummy. I hardly don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I just believe because what that does is that gives them a way of escape to not be responsible. So they want to blame it on a mummy and say it's an ancient disease that somehow or another this DNA came from an ancient mummy. So when this mummy was actually, I'm guessing, examined, and somehow or another this HIV was able, or this strand was able to get in the population to cause these people's demise. So if you believe that, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Okay. It says the virus is associated with myriad serious health problems such as diseases of the nervous system and a lung damaging condition called, bronchiolitis. Tysesis, whatever it is. And it weakens the immune system. The HTLV-1 is sometimes called a cousin of the human immunodeficiency virus HIV. And it says here, in extraordinary prevalence in remote Australia, the focus has come about now because of the high prevalence among indigenous Australians, which is probably the highest ever reported prevalence in any population, said Dr. Graham Taylor, a clinician and professor at the Imperial College London, who runs the United Kingdom's HTLV clinical service based at St. Mary's Hospital. But if we look globally, we know about the HTLV-1 and a number of countries he added. HTLV-1 is present throughout the world, but there are certain areas where it is highly endemic, such as the rare location, isolated clusters in Central Australia. The main highly endemic areas are the southwestern part of Japan, some parts of the Caribbean, areas in South America, including parts of Brazil, Peru, Colombia, and French Guiana. Some areas are intertropical Africa, such as South Gabon. Some areas in the Middle East, such as the Mashhad region in Iran, a region in Romania, and a rare isolated cluster in Melanesia, according to the European Centers for Disease Prevention and Control. Now, you've seen that most of the areas that they mention are in dark places. Brazil, right? Brazil has the highest concentration of Africans in the world coming out of slavery. So Brazil is predominantly 98% dark, okay? So of course, okay, Colombia is dark, right? Okay, you have the Caribbean, right? Dark. South America, dark. French Guiana, dark. And intertropical Africa, of course, we know dark, right? And Gabon in Africa. And certain parts of the Middle East, they said, such as Mashhad region in Iran and Romania. And Romania and Iran are more of the lighter Euro-Asian people, I guess you could say. But see, See, and all of this is by design. If you don't understand the way these diseases are going to all these dark places in the world to eradicate, because of course we have, not we, but the powers that be, there's a genome that is predicated on eradication of populations around the world, where obviously we know they're trying to hit all these dark areas in the world because they want to reduce the population where these men are playing God because they think there are too many people on the planet. Okay, so, but I would say that they're going to go to other places because it will have a slingshot effect. Elsewhere in the world, such as in the United States and the UK, prevalence remain low. The interesting thing about Central Australia, of course, is you can go back 25 years and the high rate of HTLV1 were published 25 years ago in the community. Taylor said, why? It's because they probably brought it there. That's why. They probably brought it there. You know that. Indeed, a study, and let me say this too while I'm thinking about it. There was a report, and I was looking at this, on how the director of the CDC basically got on, published an article saying that during the experiments, during the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, that these black men volunteered. And she caught so much hell on Twitter. These men never volunteered. They were under the guise that they were being treated for sicknesses, and the government treated these people knowing that they lied to them. They treated these people knowing that they were not upfront with these men about what they were doing and what they were injecting these men in with syphilis, and many of them died. And not only that, but unbeknownst to a lot of people, they also treated these men's wives and children as well, injecting them with syphilis. And she caught a lot of flack because these men never consented, or did they volunteer to be. What person in their right mind would want to be shot up with a deadly disease? And they did this under the guise because they gave these men food and treatment. I mean, and some other small incentives for them doing this. And so it's not anything new that the government uses people as guinea pigs, not only to experiment with them, but to eradicate them. And not only that, as well, when when penicillin was introduced to America, which was, by the way, invented by a black man as well, came up with this antidote to cure people, they did not give the penicillin to the black men who had the syphilis. They let them die. And they had a cure to give these men when they contracted the syphilis, knowing that they were shooting these men up with syphilis. They wanted to see the effects of the disease. So, again, it tells you how diabolical that these people are. How they use people for their own human experiments with the outcome being death. It's unclear whether the sample in that old study was of the same population currently experiencing a high prevalence rate, and it's unclear whether the previous rate was measured with similar methods used to assess prevalent today. So I just wanted to give you something in regards to how these diseases are becoming so widespread around the world. And there's more to come. Trust me. And it's going to probably get to a point where these diseases are going to break out of these areas, these isolated areas, and get into mainstream urban, maybe not urban areas, prayerfully it won't, but how these diseases are going to become and get into mainstream metropolitan areas in a lot of these European countries. You heard it from me first. You know what I mean? And so, because the treatment of the way that you treat people and expect that you could just walk away and there's no result for the way you're harming people and the dehumanizing treatment of millions of people around the globe, and how you have this invested, concerted effort to depopulate and to eradicate people from the planet like you are God, has consequences. So again, remember to support us. Remember to come and to listen and to learn and to stay up to date with what we're doing. Remember, you can visit us on Apple, Amazon, Patreon, Spreaker, and of course, you can find us on Anchor by Spotify. So again, until next time, you're speaking with Seth Moore here on Anchor by Spotify. Remember to visit us again. Find us in the places: Spreaker, Amazon, Podbean, Apple Music, and many other host sites. Until next time, we'll see you. Stay vigilant, stay up, and stay blessed. Take care. Bye-bye.